Now here's something completely different for the Super Cassette Vision. Epoch began a process here of bringing ports of computer games to the Super Cassette Vision. This version of Boulder Dash was released sometime around the beginning of summer 1985, and at that time, Japan's console market was exploding thanks to the Famicom becoming the biggest thing ever, and game publishers, desperate to find content that they could release on it, were grabbing any popular computer game they could get their hands on. And in the case of Boulder Dash and Miner 2049er, they even proudly put on the box that the games were from the US. Boulder Dash in particular was a bit of a coup for Epoch. It was a smash hit in the US, one of the first big-selling computer games. It had just the right balance of puzzle and action that would make a perfect console port. And Epoch got the license all locked up for the Super Cassette Vision. It wasn't enough to save the system, but because of this, you didn't see a port of Boulder Dash on the Famicom until 1990. The concept of Boulder Dash is simple. You control Rockford, a guy who's hunting for diamonds. Rockford can freely tunnel through dirt, and can move up and down, left and right without too much difficulty. However, there are also boulders everywhere, and the boulders fall down. They also roll if they're set on top of anything other than dirt. They don't move when Rockford tunnels out the dirt around them, but as soon as he moves away, then the rocks shift. And that means it's very easy to get crushed by boulders if you're not being careful as you dig. Your goal on every stage is to collect a certain number of diamonds, which also fall like the boulders, and then locate the exit tile. The Epoch version of Boulder Dash has 16 stages, and they have been scaled down from the original version. You can still see the outline of the stages there, but if you're familiar with the game, you're also going to easily tell that they're not quite the same. The controls are pretty straightforward. You push in a direction to move, and if you hold down one of the buttons and press in a direction, you'll dig in that space. That's mainly useful for when you want to break a monster out of a hole. Yes, Boulder Dash has monsters, and they can be very valuable, since if you crush them with a boulder, they turn into diamonds. One problem with the control scheme is that the Super Cassette Vision controller is terrible. It's hard to hold it in a way that you won't accidentally push in a diagonal direction, and so you're going to make moves that you didn't intend to. That's not the game's fault, that one's on the console itself. Another thing to be aware of is if you wind up in a position where you're completely trapped, you can hit the clear button on the console's select pad in order to die and restart the stage. You can also push boulders, but for whatever reason, in this version of Boulder Dash, it takes a very long time for you to push anything. You'll have to press on a boulder for a few seconds before it moves. Boulder Dash offers two difficulties, Amateur and Pro. Professional starts with fewer lives, and the game runs at a much faster speed, though that really works out to your advantage, since your slow movement on the Amateur difficulty means that on some of the more sprawling levels, you're really pushing against the time limit. Another stage obstacle that you need to keep an eye out for are amoebas, and when one of those is present, there will be a constant alarm sound playing. There are some stages where there is sometimes an amoeba and sometimes not, so pay attention to that alarm. Amoebas spread to neighboring squares every few seconds, assuming that the square near them is empty or only has dirt in it. You can completely enclose them in boulders and other pieces of terrain, and in that case, the amoeba will turn entirely to diamond. That's good for a lot of bonus points if you can pull it off. One useful thing to be aware of is that while there isn't a continue system, when you start the game, you can press the Enter button on the select pad and then punch in what stage you'd like to start at. So you can always pick up your game right where you left off. There's generally two useful approaches to playing Boulder Dash. You can start at the top and work your way down. This has the advantage of avoiding getting crushed, assuming you can stabilize the boulder pack above you as you move down. Alternatively, you can start at the bottom and drop the boulders past you as you work your way up. This is a more time-consuming approach, but it means you can build your own stack of boulders out of the way. Regardless of what approach you choose, The biggest risk to you will always be when you're moving up and down. If you don't watch what you're doing there, it's easy to dislodge something and have it come down right on your head. Or worse, have it roll down and block up something that you need. At least Boulder Dash is usually pretty generous with the diamonds. On most stages, there's more than enough diamonds to cover you, especially if you kill monsters for them. Something you should keep your eye out for is when the screen flashes. That means you've gained enough points to earn an extra life. There's one more challenge in Boulder Dash, and that's finding the exit once you have enough diamonds. One of the pink squares will start flashing, and on early stages that'll be easy to identify because it's out in the open. But later on it'll be one of the squares embedded in the wall. So once you have enough diamonds, just start walking the perimeter and see what you can find. Boulder Dash is a very interesting game from a historical perspective, as one of the first action puzzle games. But the Super Cassette Vision version is not the one you want to play. The controls just aren't quite as responsive as you'd like, and if you're not playing on professional level, then the game is painfully slow. There are a lot of better versions of Boulder Dash out there, and even in 1985 there were a lot of better versions of Boulder Dash out there. It is an impressive achievement for the Super Cassette Vision, since you have these large stages where you're tunneling things out. The dynamic play of the boulders is perfect for the Super Cassette Vision sprite capabilities. But play the Commodore 64 version or Atari version instead. This one's mainly a curiosity.